Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. I used to believe I had the perfect life. A successful business, 2 amazing kids, and a wife who had stood beside me for over 2 decades. I was proud of the life Diana and I had built. Or at least, I thought I was. I'm Jacob Mason, but my friends call me Jay. I'm 6 feet 3 inches, 192 pounds, and I hit the gym 5 days a week without fail. Physical training isn't just a routine, it's who I am. About 8 years ago, I left the corporate rat race and took a leap of faith into entrepreneurship. That decision paid off. I built a thriving company from the ground up, and I haven't looked back since. Diana, on the other hand, stayed in the corporate world. She's been working at the same firm, one of the 50 biggest in the country, for 24 years. She started as an OT analyst just a month after we got married. About 5 years ago, she moved into a new role as a training unit instructor, staying current with ever-evolving tech. Her position requires her to attend 20 days of educational programs, each year mandatory. No exceptions. At 46, Diana is still striking. 5 feet 8 inches, 118 pounds, and not what most people picture when they think of a mother of 2 grown kids. Every morning, without fail, she joins 6 other women from our neighborhood for a 6-mile run just as the sun's coming up. Evelyn, our daughter, picked up the habit early on. She started running with them when she was just 14. Evelyn's now 22, just graduated from Florida State, and followed her mom's footsteps into education. She teaches 1st grade down in Naples and absolutely loves it. I'm proud of her. She even appreciates my little hobby, brewing beer. She joined a local beer club in Naples, and whenever I can, I make time to go down and attend the meetings with her. It's our thing. Kyle, our 21-year-old son, just wrapped up his degree from the University of Florida. He's ambitious, sharp, and says he wants to work with me in my company. But I've told him clearly, real-world experience first, Kyle. 5 years. Learn how the system works before you come into something I built from the ground up. He gets it. I think he respects that. Diana never liked beer. Couldn't stand the smell of it. She'd wrinkle her nose whenever I brought it up. So I learned to time my brewing around her schedule, especially her work trips. Like now. She's in Dallas, gone for a training seminar. Perfect window for me to brew a new batch of rich English brown ale I'd been thinking about for weeks. Things felt stable, maybe even perfect. But life has a way of yanking the floor out from under you when you least expect it. It all started last Wednesday night. 8:30 p.m. Bobby, one of my beer club buddies, called. "Hey Jay," he said, sounding tired. "Could you do me a solid and pick me up from the airport? My flight got moved last minute." "Of course," I said without hesitation. "Text me your terminal. I'll be there." I drove out to the airport and waited at baggage claim. As I stood there, scanning the crowd for Bobby, I noticed 3 familiar faces. Diana's co-workers. I recognized them from the company retreat photos. She occasionally showed me team dinners, workshops, that sort of thing. My eyes darted behind them, expecting to see Diana right there among them. But she wasn't. They stood chatting and laughing, each with a small suitcase. No Diana. That odd feeling in my stomach like something had just gone out of place grew stronger. I pulled out my phone and, instead of dialing her personal number like I usually do, I called her work line. I don't even know why. Maybe it was just instinct. The phone rang twice, and then her office voicemail picked up. "You've reached Diana Mason, training instructor for the Southwest region. I'm currently out of the Dallas office through Wednesday, attending training courses. I will not be available Thursday or Friday, but feel free to leave a message, and I'll return calls on Monday." As Bobby and I made our way to the car, I couldn't hold it in. "Bobby," I said, keeping my voice low. I saw 3 of Diana's co-workers coming out of baggage claim. They were pulling luggage. I recognized them from her company events. He glanced at me, puzzled. "So, where's Diana?" "That's just it," I said. Her voicemail said she'd be in Dallas until Wednesday teaching. Then she said she'd be off Thursday and Friday. But these people, they're already back. Tonight's only Wednesday. He blinked, thinking it through, then offered, "You should talk to Simon. You know, from the club? He's a detective, local police." That idea stuck. As soon as I got home, I made up my mind I needed answers. I called Diana. She answered on the second ring. "Hey babe," she said, her voice warm. I tried to keep calm. "I just wanted to hear your voice." "Ah," she cooed. "I can't wait to see you. I've been thinking about falling asleep in your arms all week." Her words felt strange, soft, and sweet, like always, but now I was listening for something more. "Will you be home Friday?" I asked. "Yes, my flight should leave early," she replied. "I'll be home by evening." There was a pause. "I miss you," she added. "I really do. But I can't leave early, it wouldn't be right. I have responsibilities to finish." You understand that, right? She sounded sincere. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't ignore what I saw. I'll see you Friday, she said softly. We hung up, and I just sat there. Then I picked up my phone and called Simon. It was late, but he answered. Jay. Hey, I said. Sorry for the hour. You got a minute for a beer? 10 minutes later, we were seated on my back porch, a couple of cold bottles between us, the night thick with questions. I laid it all out, what I saw, what I heard, what didn't add up. Simon leaned back in his chair, listening closely. You really think she's cheating? I nodded slowly. Something's off. Her colleagues are back. She said she was there until Friday. She told me she'd be teaching until the end of the week. But her voicemail says she's out of office until Wednesday and then on vacation. Simon rubbed his chin. This isn't something you want to ignore. If it were me, I'd dig. I don't even know where to start, I admitted. I might, he said after a pause. You should talk to Felix Jones. Felix Jones? I asked. The guy who? Yeah, Simon nodded. He's been around a long time. Knows the landscape. Might be able to help you put this together. Quietly, I sighed, the weight of it all starting to settle. I'll reach out to him in the morning. But I didn't need to. As the sun rose and I poured my coffee, I heard a knock at the door. It was Felix Jones. Simon told me you needed to talk, he said, stepping inside. We sat down, and I shared everything, what I saw, what Diana said, what I felt. Felix listened carefully. Then he looked me straight in the eye. Let me ask you something, Jacob, he said. Have you been happily married these past 24 years? I hesitated. I thought I was. And now that you suspect something, are you really ready to find out the truth? That stopped me cold. I mean, he continued, most of the time, when a husband gets the kind of answers you're asking for, it doesn't end with clarity. It ends with divorce. Are you sure that's what you want? I stared at the floor. I just want to know. I have to. Felix nodded slowly, then leaned forward. Okay, here's what I need to know. How much information do you want? Are we talking about one event or 20 years? How far back are we going? What's your budget for this? And are you prepared to live with what we find? His words echoed in my head. Each question hit harder than the last. Finally, I looked up at him. Felix, I said, steady and sure, I need to know every last detail. When, where, and with whom. I want to go back as far as possible, and I don't care what it costs. If I've been lied to, I want to know just how deep it goes. He held my gaze for a moment, then gave a slow, knowing nod. All right, he said, then I'll reach out to someone I trust. A private detective from Dallas. Felix didn't waste time. He told me his contact in Dallas, a dependable private investigator, would start looking into Diana's background right away. One of his team members would also be reviewing Diana's training schedule in detail, cross-checking dates, names, and logistics. Meanwhile, Felix gave me a clear task. Reach out to the 3 teachers I'd seen at the airport. He figured they might help corroborate Diana's actual whereabouts that week. While waiting for their replies, I couldn't sit still. I began searching the house, though I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Anything that might explain what I'd stumbled into. But where to start? I ruled out the common areas, the living room, dining room, and kitchen. Nothing would be there. Evelyn and Kyle's rooms were off limits in my mind. They didn't deserve to be dragged into this, even by accident. I headed to our bedroom. Diana's dresser? Nothing out of place. Everything was exactly how I remembered. Her usual neatly folded scarves, her earrings in their tray, perfume bottles aligned. Not a hair out of place. Then I moved to the closet. A wall of boxes stared back at me from the top shelf. I considered pulling them down, but decided to change tack. I shifted into the bathroom, scanning cabinets, drawers, under the sink, anywhere someone might stash something personal or secret. But there was nothing. Just the usual. Cotton swabs, lotion, toothbrush, face masks. Back to the closet, then. This time I dug deeper, carefully pushing aside hanging clothes, checking pockets, opening every shoebox and inspecting each pair. Everything was spotless. Organized. Normal. Too normal. Still nothing. I extended my search. The guest bedroom? Empty. The study? Just papers, books, binders. The garage? Tools, boxes, bikes. The attic? Dust and insulation. Every space told the same story. Diana had nothing to hide, or she'd hidden it far too well. Around 5 p.m., Felix arrived. He walked in briskly, all business, with a black case in hand. Within minutes, he had surveillance cameras discreetly installed in all the bedrooms, the kitchen, and the office. He also set up a small voice recorder. Efficient, quiet, untraceable. Once everything was in place, we headed to the airport. Felix had a plan. We eventually found Diana's car. It was parked neatly in long-term parking, exactly where she said it would be. But Felix wasn't just looking, he was setting traps. He slipped a GPS unit into the trunk and secured a small voice recorder under the driver's seat. Back at the house, we poured a couple of light Alish. The bitter taste did little to dull the weight pressing against my chest. Felix walked me through what his team had found so far. Diana's class schedules, he explained, varied from 3 to 5 days depending on location. In Dallas, classes lasted 3 days Monday through Wednesday. Teachers like Tom and Paul flew out Sunday afternoon, returned Wednesday evening. All materials were delivered a week before the class started, but instructors weren't responsible for setup. Local employees handled that. I sat quietly, piecing it all together, my jaw tightening with every word. She wasn't where she said she was. Not the whole week. Not the whole time. I stood up abruptly, pacing into the kitchen. She's been lying to me, Felix. I said, my voice low but sharp. Lying. For how long? Why? There should be consequences for this. This can't go unanswered. Felix remained calm, his eyes following me as I moved. Did you find anything during my search? I asked. Anything at all? He shook his head. Nothing suspicious, he said. The only detail we noticed, she frequently washes her clothes right after getting home. I clenched my fists. Then intercept her bag at the airport, I said firmly. I'll find a way to keep her from starting laundry. I'll unplug the washer, trip the breaker, I don't care. Just don't let her destroy anything before we get to it. Felix nodded. Before leaving, he added that his contact in Dallas was already at Diana's hotel and planned to speak with him in the morning. He'd call me after. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in our bed. The thought of lying there next to the same pillow she used was unbearable. I grabbed a blanket and crashed in Kyle's room instead. I barely slept. The next morning, I forced myself to stick to routine. Went to the office, tried to focus. Kept it together. Barely. At 2 p.m., Felix returned, carrying a thick stack of documents. He looked more serious than usual. The report came in, he said. Photos too. He laid the pages out on the kitchen table, then pulled out his phone. There's something I want you to see, he said, opening a gallery of images. He held up a photo. It showed 6 people sitting at a restaurant table, 3 men and 3 women. They were in pairs, leaning in close, relaxed, maybe even affectionate. Felix looked me in the eyes and asked quietly, do you recognize any of these people? I stared at the photo for a long moment before finally speaking. The only one I can identify for sure is Diana. Felix gave me a nod and handed over individual close-up photos of each person. I took them carefully and studied every face again, silently. Each detail, hair, eyes, posture, anything that might trigger recognition. After a few minutes, I pointed to one of the men. This guy, I said slowly, handing the photo to Felix. He looks familiar. I can't place it yet, but I've seen him somewhere before. Felix didn't push me. He just nodded, as if tucking that note away for later. As we ate, he shared more. Jay, he said between bites. The hotel had cameras on every floor. They cover all the corridor activity. He opened another folder with printed time-stamped stills and slid them across the table. We began going through the next set of photos, Diana and the others leaving the restaurant, entering the hotel, and stepping into the elevator. The timestamp showed Thursday evening. Then we saw them again, this time exiting on the 7th floor. The women entered room 707, Felix said, tapping one picture. Men went into 709. I kept flipping. On Friday morning at exactly 10:29 a.m., we saw the next sequence. 2 men leaving room 709, captured on camera again in the elevator, then walking down the hall and out through the hotel's front doors. Felix leaned over the table. These don't scream romance. More like friendly or professional interactions. He continued. They grabbed lunch at a nearby restaurant. Separate checks. Nothing unusual. He passed me more images, this time of the same people returning to the hotel. We watched them carry their luggage from the rooms to the elevator, then to the reception desk where they all appeared to check out. Felix turned to me, his tone more serious. Jay, are you still absolutely sure you want all the details? Without hesitating, I met his eyes. Yes, I'm sure. He held my gaze for a second longer, as if measuring the weight of what he was about to say. Then he continued. While we talked, another folder was slipped across the table, this one, even thicker. I won't go into the full conversation, Felix said, flipping it open, but our agents in Dallas did a complete sweep of rooms 707 and 709. They coordinated with hotel cleaners. He pointed at a diagram of the floor layout. Turns out, those 2 rooms 707 and 709 are connected by an internal door. I leaned back, my stomach knotting tighter. Felix went on, calm but methodical. Sheets were removed and sent to the lab. Used glasses packed for fingerprint analysis. They even went through the trash. I looked away for a second, unsure I was ready to hear more. He paused, then said quietly, there was a strong, closeness smell in both rooms. And all 4 beds had clear signs of use. Stains. Movement. I rubbed my temples, feeling the pressure behind my eyes. to figure out whether Diana was actively involved or just there will have to wait for the lab results. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both knew the truth was leaning heavily in one direction. It was hard to believe she wasn't involved, not with everything we'd seen. I swallowed hard. She's supposed to be back tonight, I said after a long silence. We decided to act. Our first step, stop her from washing anything when she got home. Together, we moved to the laundry area. Felix pointed at the machine. We'll need to delay her, just long enough to inspect her clothes. I crouched beside it, hands trembling slightly, and disconnected one of the motor wires. Simple, effective, and maybe Felix had given me the task to keep me grounded, to focus on something I could control. Back in the kitchen, Felix brought up something I hadn't anticipated. We should collect DNA samples, he said. Yours, the kids, and Diana's. I froze. What? What? Felix looked at me steadily. You said you wanted full transparency. My breath caught in my throat. You think? Kyle and Evelyn. I couldn't finish. Felix raised a hand, gently. Jay, I'm not saying anything, but this is the time to ask the hard questions. Do you want the truth or not? I stared at him for a long moment. Yeah, I want it. He nodded. We just need one strand of hair, preferably from a comb. Something before their first haircut would be best, but a recent strand works. We got to work. I went through Kyle's brush and found a single hair. Felix labeled the sample as number 2. Then we found one from Evelyn, number 3. He took a sample from me, labeling it number 1. Finally, I retrieved one from Diana's comb, carefully marked number 4. Felix placed each sample in a small, sealed envelope with surgical precision. Tomorrow morning, he said, these will be sent to the laboratory. Felix had one more card to play. He mentioned having a contact at the airport, someone discreet who might be able to intercept Diana's luggage before she retrieved it. If successful, the missing baggage would delay her return home and buy us time. It would also naturally frustrate her, masking any suspicion we were already steps ahead. Once we covered that, the conversation shifted to something more difficult. Me. How do you plan to act around her? Felix asked bluntly. Can you greet her warmly? Hug her? Kiss her? I looked down, unsure for a moment. Could you listen to her made-up stories about Dallas with a straight face? He continued. Invite her to dinner? Pretend everything is normal while she weaves lies. I took a deep breath. It wasn't just about catching her anymore, it was about maintaining the illusion long enough to get the full truth. Felix's face remained serious. This will take time, Jay. Months, even. It's not just about what she did in Dallas, it's about the entire scope. We need time to collect and analyze everything. Are you really prepared to keep your composure that long? I nodded. I'll do what it takes, I said quietly but firmly. I need to know the full truth. He paused for a moment, then asked, what if you went on a 3 or 4 day trip? Business-related. Something that wouldn't raise suspicion. I thought about it. Who could I visit that would make sense on short notice? I looked up and smiled. St. Louis. One of my old clients. I could tell her I need to fly out Monday morning and return Thursday afternoon. Felix gave a satisfied nod. That might work. If she has something to hide, she might avoid acting while you're around. But if she thinks she has space, she could slip up. Let her guard down. That's what we're hoping for. He rubbed his chin, thinking further. The problem is, her office doesn't have video surveillance. So we have to ask, what does she always carry with her? Something we can bug. I considered it. Purse. No too many opportunities to leave it behind. Then it hit me. Her briefcase, I said. She never leaves it at home when she's working. Felix raised an eyebrow. Not ideal, but not bad either. We'll go with that. He handed me a small device no larger than a paperclip. Attach it tonight. Quietly. Shouldn't be hard. As he stepped toward the door, he stopped and looked back. You ready for the show? He asked. Yes, I replied. Simple. Certain. He gave a final instruction. If you get a chance tonight or tomorrow morning, check for any liquid stains on her underwear. And Jay. He gave a tired smile. Good night. Call me this weekend if you need anything. And remember, stay calm. After he left, I poured myself a glass of porter and sat out on the back terrace, letting the cool air settle over me. My mind was a whirlwind. I thought of Diana, of everything we'd built, everything I'd believed, and I thought of how easily it could all unravel. Still, there was nothing in her behavior that gave away her true intentions aside from her plan to do laundry early Saturday morning. That, I now understood, was strategic. Just before dawn, my phone rang. It was Felix. Her luggage made it to the lab, he said. All set. Just stay calm. You're doing good. At daybreak, Diana came through the door, her usual travel fatigue written all over her face. But there was something else too: annoyance. Frustration. The airline lost my luggage, she sighed. 2 new pairs of trousers, gone. She looked at me, eyes weary but warm. But it's okay. Everything else was in my carry-on. Essentials made it. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. leaning her head against my shoulder. "I missed you," she whispered. "It felt so empty without you." I gave a gentle hug and planted a soft kiss on her forehead. "I missed you too," I murmured. After another squeeze, she made her way upstairs, muttering something about a hot bath to unwind. As the water began running, I took the bug Felix gave me and quietly opened her briefcase, securing the device under the side flap. Then I sat down on the couch and turned on the TV, though I wasn't watching. I thought of those earlier days. The memories. The smiles. The long drives. The quiet dinners. The years we built together. And yet, as I replayed her arrival, the way she smiled, the warmth in her hug, the sweetness in her words, I couldn't shake the unease. Despite the mild frustration with the airline, she was thrilled to be home. She was calm, composed, effortlessly perfect. And once again, I found myself comparing my efforts to her impeccable work. That morning, after Felix left and the chaos of the past few days settled into a heavy silence, I sat alone on the terrace. Diana's return had gone smoothly, perhaps too smoothly. Her calmness, her ease, she looked like someone completely at peace. And that unnerved me. If I was going to keep up this performance, play the loving husband, while secretly unraveling the truth, I couldn't falter. I needed to match her composure, her poise. I needed to sharpen my own mask until it was just as convincing as hers. If she had been practicing this deception for years, I had to learn fast. That night, I put everything aside, all my doubts, all the bitterness, and climbed the stairs with one goal: to maintain the illusion. Whatever Diana believed we still had, I'd hold it up for now. I slid into bed, let her rest her head on my chest, and closed my eyes, trying to believe it was real. That maybe, just for a few hours, we could both find comfort in the lie. Saturday morning came. I think Diana overslept. No urgency without her luggage meant she didn't need to rush the laundry. As she rested, I moved quietly into the bathroom, preparing for a shower. Then I saw a basin of dirty laundry beside the hamper. Something inside me shifted. I hesitated, then slowly, almost involuntarily, began to sift through the pile. Her underwear was there, neatly folded over itself, soft and clean-smelling, as always. I wasn't sure what I was looking for: stains, unusual marks, perfume that wasn't mine. I wasn't a forensics expert, just a husband desperate for truth. But I found nothing. Nothing unusual. Just clothes. Fabric. Innocence or deception, I couldn't tell which. Feeling a strange mixture of guilt and relief, I finished my shower, dried off, and went downstairs. I made coffee, grabbed the newspaper, and waited. By the time I was pouring my third cup, I heard soft footsteps on the stairs. She entered the kitchen, wrapped in a bathrobe, her face fresh and radiant from sleep. She gave me a smile, calm, natural, even affectionate. "Good morning, sleepyhead," I greeted, my voice light and playful. "Looks like you're ready to conquer the day." She chuckled softly and nodded. "I am. It feels good to be home." "Coffee?" I offered. "God, yes. Please," she said with a grateful grin. I poured her a cup and slid it across the counter. As she took a sip, I joked, "Maybe I should arrange for luggage errors more often. You seem more relaxed than ever." She smiled at that, shaking her head. "Don't you dare," she teased. "I still haven't forgiven them for losing those new trousers." After breakfast, I headed outside to take care of some chores, eager to burn off the restlessness pulsing through me. A few hours later, Diana called out from the hallway. "I'm going to the grocery store. Need anything?" I looked up and smiled faintly. "No thanks, I'm good." While she was out, I returned to my small sanctuary, the brewing corner in the garage. It was time to transfer my English brown ale from the primary to the secondary fermenter. The familiar scent and process grounded me routine amidst the chaos. That evening, we went to our favorite Italian restaurant. Candlelight, wine, soft music, it was all so practiced, so familiar. Our conversation flowed easily. We laughed. We reminisced. She talked about the exhaustion of travel. I mentioned my upcoming trip to St. Louis. She leaned in, genuinely, I thought. "I'm just happy to be home," she said. "Honestly, if that bag's not back by Wednesday, I'll just go shopping after work." I raised an eyebrow. "Won't anyone at the office notice?" She shrugged. "They don't need to know. Except for those old trousers, God. I've worn them forever." I grinned and pivoted the conversation, rambling a bit about my brown ale batch. By the time we got home, I had bottled 2 full cases, perfectly timed before the drive to St. Louis. 8 hours on the road never felt like a chore to me. I loved the solitude, the silence, the time to reflect. Normally, I thought about business, strategy, growth, but not this time. This time, all I could think about was Diana. Halfway through the drive, I picked up my phone and called Felix. We went over the weekend events. He had no updates, but he assured me he'd stay in touch. Still lost in thought, I was surprised to glance at the dash and see that 4 hours had already passed. I called Felix again. "Felix," I I said. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Be honest. Gut feeling, what are we dealing with? There was a pause. I could tell he was choosing his words carefully. I've been talking with Joe in Dallas, he said slowly. And we're both convinced of one thing. This wasn't a one-time slip. Diana's been involved in numerous affairs over a long period. I didn't interrupt. I let it sink in. Felix continued. It's just not possible to observe that many hours of private, closed-door meetings with that level of physical closeness and not suspect active participation. He took a breath. And it wasn't just the actions. It was their behavior. Their comfort. No nerves. No clinging. No second-guessing. They didn't act like people having a wild affair. They acted like professionals, like people who've done this for years. Felix's voice on the other end of the line was calm but cautious. Jay, I get the sense that you may be unhappy with the direction our investigation is heading, especially our conclusions about this group, which includes Diana. He wasn't wrong. A part of me had been clinging, however weakly, to the hope that there was some misunderstanding, something they misread. But that part was dying by the day. He went on. Our operative reported that the 6 of them discussed their classes, their families, and did so with incredible ease. The way they interacted, it was effortless, like they'd known each other a long time. Not just colleagues, Jay, but something more intimate, more sustained. I stayed silent, listening, gripping the steering wheel as I pulled off the highway into the city. Felix continued. They deliberately paid their own way for meals. They avoided sitting next to the same person repeatedly, and they made sure to engage everyone in the group. Very calculated, very careful. That kind of detail chilled me more than any photo. This wasn't recklessness. It was a well-practiced routine. Felix paused. The evidence strongly suggests that this group has been close-knit for years. They kept up appearances during the day, polite, friendly. But in those hotel rooms, he hesitated, then finished. They threw stormy parties. I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Before hanging up, Felix left me with a final nudge. You'll have to make a decision, Jay. About Diana. About the others. You can't sit in this purgatory forever. Those words stuck with me. After hanging up, I took a long breath and called my lawyer, Michael Davidson, one of the best in the state. I kept the briefing short but thorough. Michael was sharp. After hearing my summary, he assured me that his colleague, Dylan Ford, would contact me soon. Once I settled into my hotel room in St. Louis, I called Diana to let her know I'd arrived safely. I kept it light, just the usual travel check-in. Then I reached out to Fred to confirm our morning tea time. Around 9:30 p.m., Felix called again. How are you holding up? He asked. I told him that I had already given his name to my lawyer and that Mike would be contacting Dylan Ford. Felix chuckled softly. Dylan Ford, huh? That man's reputation alone is enough to make any divorce lawyer sweat. If Diana gets a lawyer and hears Dylan's name, she'll know this isn't a bluff. I was tired. Bone deep tired. I'm just done, Felix, I said quietly. If they wanted to play dirty, then I'll show them how good I am at the same game. Tuesday was a blur of fresh air, quiet frustration, and long silences between laughs with Fred on the golf course. It helped a little. Wednesday, around 1 p.m., Felix called again. What's your schedule look like? I'm free the rest of the day, I said, planning to head home Thursday morning. At around 2 p.m., Dylan Ford called. His voice was calm, steady, confident, just what I needed. After I explained everything in more detail, he offered his approval of the direction we'd taken. He praised Felix's firm, calling them one of the best investigative teams he'd ever worked with. Then came the big question. What do you want to do, Jacob, if Diana is proven unfaithful? If that happens, I said slowly, I'll divorce her. No hesitation. Dylan nodded, understanding. Good. But I suggest you wait until Felix's team finishes their work. Let it unfold. We discussed divorce strategies. Infidelity would be the foundation. It gave me leverage. With the kids already adults, the path was simpler. There is a quicker no-fault route in Georgia, Dylan explained. But accusing her of infidelity would be more profitable, especially if you have clear evidence. We talked long into the afternoon about timing, appearances, and how I could maintain the illusion of normalcy for months if needed. That night, at exactly 9 p.m., there was a knock at my hotel door. I opened it, and there stood Simon and Felix. Simon looked confused. He didn't tell me why we were coming, he said. Only that it was important. That you might want a friend present. Felix looked at me seriously. It's bad news, Jay. I thought it'd be best to deliver it in person. I stood there for a second, then stepped aside. Simon stays, I said. He's been there since the beginning. He deserves to know too. We sat down. Felix took out a folder, opened it slowly, and met my eyes. The lab results are in, he said. I braced myself. They confirmed Diana's active participation. I swallowed hard. He continued. Traces of all 6 individuals were found on one bed, even though each woman had her own bed. Felix's words were steady, clinical, but they pierced straight through me. Our evidence strongly proves, he began, that every woman in that group had close physical relations with all three men. In their rooms. On their beds. I didn't speak. Couldn't. My throat tightened as if I were drowning in the air around me. He continued, more gently now. We were able to confirm Diana's presence and participation through the DNA sample from your home, the hair you gave us. I clenched my jaw. That strand of hair. One strand. And it shattered everything I believed I knew. Jay, Felix said quietly. I'm sorry. I truly am. I stared at the floor, lost in the swirl of thoughts I couldn't sort through. For a moment, time just stopped. My heart pounded. I closed my eyes, trying to silence the roaring inside my head, to suppress the white-hot anger building in my chest. After a long moment, I opened my eyes, still dazed. My voice came out barely audible. This can't be real, I said. She was involved with 5 other people? How could it get worse than that? Felix shifted in his chair. His face changed. A slight cough, like he was clearing space for something heavier. There's more, Jay, he said. I wish I didn't have to say this. He locked eyes with me. 2 of those men are the biological fathers of Kyle and Evelyn. Everything in me went still. What? I whispered. He repeated it. Kyle and Evelyn are not biologically yours. The words cracked something inside me. I stood up so fast the chair scraped backward. What the hell are you saying? I shouted, eyes wide. How is that even possible? Those are my kids, my son, my daughter. How? My voice broke. Felix didn't flinch. Simon looked down, somber. I staggered back, shaking my head. 24 years, I muttered to myself. She's been lying to me for over 2 decades, raising children fathered by other men, pretending we were a family. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But then something changed. Amid the shock, the grief, the heartbreak, something darker started to settle in a strange clarity. I would use this. I would turn this ruin into power. She wants to play games. I said, more to myself than them. Then I'll show her what it means to lose. They didn't say anything. They just watched me pace the room, agitation rippling through my limbs like static. Thoughts collided. Rage, betrayal, confusion, loneliness. Then, somewhere in that emotional storm, I found my footing. Felix, ever perceptive, broke the silence. You're not thinking straight, Jay. That's why we came. We didn't want you alone with this. I nodded slowly. Of course. They weren't just here to deliver news. They were here to keep me from doing something reckless. I sat back down, rubbed my face. Okay, I said. So what do we do? Felix and Simon glanced at each other. Their faces said it all. This was going to be complicated. I want her to answer for every lie. I said, finally. They nodded. That night, I hardly slept. But I wasn't alone, and that made it bearable. When I was too weak to carry the weight of it, Felix and Simon steadied me. With the lab results secured, the truth in hand, we began discussing the strategy. I knew a public divorce would devastate Diana. The scandal would ruin her. But I also had to face reality. If I went after her for infidelity in court, I'd be dragged through the same mud. The media, the humiliation, even Kyle and Evelyn, my children, though not of my blood, would suffer. Felix reminded me, in Georgia, either of you can file for a no-fault divorce. That means 30 days and it's done clean, fast. If you file for infidelity, it could take months. Maybe more. He was right. As much as I wanted vengeance, dragging this through court would be a slow, grueling battle. Simon, Felix, and even Dylan Ford, all of them advised me, go the no-fault route. It was faster, cheaper, and still gave me room to reveal the truth later, on my terms. I didn't like it, but I agreed. Now it was only a matter of deciding when. So the next morning, I returned to Atlanta, and the 4 of us, Simon, Felix, Dylan, and I, gathered in Felix's conference room to discuss. We sat around Felix's conference table, the room quiet except for the soft hum of the overhead lights. The air felt thick. Anticipation and exhaustion coiled together like steam beneath a sealed pot. My eyes scanned the documents spread out in front of us, then landed on Felix. I cleared my throat. So what do we actually know, and what's still missing? Felix leaned forward, folding his hands. We've compiled substantial intel so far: movement logs, hotel records, booking histories, even confirmed travel overlaps. But we still need details on their financial connections, any private communication channels, and most importantly, confirmation of their marital and parental situations. He paused. There's still a lot we don't know, Jay, but we're getting there. I nodded, then asked the question that had been burning in the back of my mind since I got back from St. Louis. While I was gone, did Diana do anything suspicious? Any calls? Meetings? Felix looked me squarely in the eye. No, she didn't do anything out of line. No inappropriate calls. No red flags at all. It was strange somehow. That didn't comfort me. It felt more calculated than innocent, as if she was already covering her tracks. Then Felix continued, flipping through a binder filled with notes. What's fascinating, he said, is that over the past 5 years, we've tracked this group the same 6 individuals. They've consistently booked rooms at the same hotels, often adjacent rooms. Though the exact pairs sometimes shifted, the pattern never really broke. I raised an eyebrow. So they all weren't always together. Not always, but usually, he replied. There were a few instances where one woman was present with all 3 men, making a group of 4. The combinations varied, but the connections were always there. The bond within that group is long-standing. The chair creaked as I shifted uncomfortably, absorbing the implications. I clenched my fist and slammed it on the table, hard enough to make the coffee tremble in its cup. It's cheating. That's what it is. Organized, disgusting cheating. My voice cracked at the edges. Felix, I want you to investigate this gang of 6 thoroughly. I need everything who's married, who's lying to their kids, whether they're all in the same organization, where they live. I want their entire lives exposed. He nodded solemnly. We're already compiling it. With Diana's work schedule in hand, I've been able to cross-reference the class locations and build a travel log. This lets us plan surveillance bugs, cameras though it's strictly off the record. That evidence won't be admissible in court. I don't care. I snapped. I'm not after court victories. I want a guilt-free exit. I want truth, and I want them to feel it. Felix flipped to a highlighted section of Diana's calendar. She's got exactly 3 more classes scheduled before your 25th wedding anniversary, he said. The last one ends on a Friday in Orlando. I sat back slowly, the wheels turning in my head. 25 years. A milestone. A joke. I've made my decision, I said, my voice cold. That Sunday, our anniversary, that will be the end. No celebrations. No gifts. No dinners. That day, I stop playing the fool. And she starts paying for what she's done. Simon nodded quietly, supportive but clearly disturbed by the scale of betrayal. Dylan looked across the table and added, We'll be ready. I clenched my jaw. She will regret ever meeting me. That was my vow now. A week passed. We gathered again, this time in Dylan's conference room. Felix had promised updates. As I sat down at the table beside Simon and Dylan, I caught my reflection in the window sharper, more hollow. It had been an incredible journey, though not in any sense I ever wanted to experience. The gang of 6 had names now. George C. Thomas, Richmond, Virginia. Henry S. King, Little Rock, Arkansas. Charles K. Nixon, Columbia, South Carolina. Joyce D. Hopkins, Miami, Florida. Catherine G. Williams, Knoxville, Tennessee. And of course, Diana. 24 years ago, they'd met at a training session for new hires. All 6 worked for the same organization. Fate or something darker had kept them bound ever since. Now it was Wednesday, the final day of Diana's last class before our so-called anniversary. Felix entered the room. We leaned forward, me, Dylan, Simon silent, braced. We were ready to hear the latest news. Felix stood at the head of the conference table, holding a thick folder of printed photos and notes. The rest of us, Dylan, Simon, and I sat in grim silence, bracing for the next chapter of this long, stomach-churning saga. He began without much ceremony. Last week in Washington, Felix said, Diana and Henry occupied adjoining rooms, while the others were scattered on different floors. I stared at him, unmoving. Felix continued, flipping through pages. We have reason to believe Diana and Henry slept in the same room during that trip. There was no activity recorded showing either woman entering or leaving Henry's room, or the other way around, nor any simultaneous exit from both rooms. So they were together the whole time. I muttered, bitterness tightening my throat. Felix nodded. From the afternoon through early evening, they were always seen together. After 10 p.m., the group dispersed to their rooms. But it wasn't until after 2 in the morning that they actually returned to those rooms. Except for Thursday night, when all 6 spent the entire night in adjacent rooms. He let the words hang. The implication was clear. I glanced at Dylan, who sat quietly beside me, tapping his pen, looking more furious than surprised. Simon looked down at the table, unable to meet my eyes. Their conversations and interactions in public were tame, normal, professional even, Felix said. They talked about meals, hotel reservations, plays, games, their kids' classes. It was like watching coworkers at a conference. I let out a hollow laugh. Coworkers who all slept with each other. Felix nodded grimly. Exactly. He went on. Once again, our agents got into the rooms dressed as a cleaning crew. Since the activity only happened in adjacent rooms, it made the operation more efficient. We collected sheets, hair samples, even women's underwear. Thanks to DNA analysis, we know the truth now. I closed my eyes. My body tensed as I braced for it. George, Felix said, turned out to be Evelyn's biological father. My head dropped. And Chuck Charles Nixon, he's Kyle's father. A long silence followed. I could hear my own breathing. It was slow but shallow. Felix wasn't done. Diana had so many partners over the years, often unprotected, that it's become impossible to determine precisely which of them fathered which child without more extensive testing. I clenched my jaw so tightly I thought it might crack. He continued. George C. Thomas lives in Richmond, Virginia. Been married for 24 years. 2 adult kids. No idea yet that he has a daughter, your daughter. And Chuck? I asked through gritted teeth. Columbia, South Carolina. Married his high school sweetheart. 25 years. 1 son. He's about to find out he has another yours. I turned away from the group, rubbing my eyes. My temples throbbed. Henry King, Felix added, Little Rock, Arkansas. Married 23 years. Twin boys. They just turned 21. That man, he sighed. That man has a daughter too. Joyce's daughter. I turned around slowly. Wait, Joyce. Felix nodded. Joyce Hopkins. Miami. Married 25 years. PR consultant. 2 kids, son and daughter, 23 and 21. And Catherine? I asked. Catherine G. Williams. Knoxville. Married 23 years. 2 daughters and a son. One daughter's father is George. The other's is Chuck. And her son Henry is the biological father. My mouth fell open. So, Joyce's daughter is Henry's. Catherine's son is also Henry's. George has a daughter with Catherine. Chuck has a daughter with her too. Yes. And Diana? She has 1 child with George and 1 with Chuck. Felix nodded solemnly. Yes. Jesus Christ. I leaned back, pressing both hands to my face. How did this even happen? They've all been married for over 2 decades. Chuck's the only one, Felix added, who recently learned of his wife's infidelity. The other's still in the dark. Simon let out a long breath. This is bigger than I ever imagined. I looked at him. Bigger? Simon, it's a network. A secret society. They've been building families based on lies for almost a quarter of a century. Felix spoke up again. We're curious about Joyce and Catherine's children too. Based on everything, we think it's very likely at least 1 if not more were fathered by the other men. Their spouses might want the answers. And soon. I shook my head. This is insane. It's all so entangled. I swear. Felix, I need a damn flowchart to keep track of it all. Even though I knew my marriage was over and I'd cycled through every stage of grief, I found a strange kind of strength in creating the illusion of a loving, devoted husband. It had become a performance, a rehearsed role I could play with ease. Pretending to be affectionate while quietly planning to destroy Diana's carefully constructed life had become its own dark thrill. She lied to my face for 24 years. What was a few more months of faking affection in return? Felix's team had their next target, San Diego. They were confident the pattern would repeat itself, just like in Washington. Same behaviors. Same betrayals. It was becoming mechanical at this point, disgusting in its predictability. They would collect the usual DNA, fingerprints, room access logs, and surveillance footage. We were just filling in the blanks now. But what truly stirred something inside me was what we had planned for Orlando. San Diego was routine. Orlando would be the finale. Catherine wouldn't be joining them in San Diego. But for Orlando, all 6 would be there. The classes were only 3 days long. Afterward, they'd have 2 free days. I could almost see the arrogance on their faces, thinking they'd fooled the world one more time. What Diana didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had already secured the role of instructor for Wednesday afternoon. It would be the final hour of their training session, and I would take the stage. Not as a betrayed husband, not as a broken man, but as the conductor of their collapse. In the presence of students, colleagues, and cameras, the gang of 6 would take their final exit. Dylan Ford had everything ready: paperwork, timing, delivery. Felix had embedded his people on site to watch every move. But even that wasn't enough for me. I wanted their spouses to see it too. I took the initiative to contact the husbands and wives of each member of this long-standing, disgraceful group. I told them I had a surprise planned for my wife in Orlando, an anniversary celebration for 25 years of marriage and 25 years of service to the company. It was the perfect story, believable and thoughtful. I made sure the flights were booked and waiting at the gate. They just needed to show up. Then, I called Kyle and Evelyn. I asked them to meet me in Orlando Tuesday evening. I told them I had something important to share, something that couldn't wait. That night, sitting with them in the hotel room, I saw so much of myself in them. My son, my daughter. Even if the DNA didn't match, my love for them hadn't changed. I took a deep breath. I need to tell you both something. And it's not easy. They looked at me with concern, leaning in. Evelyn reached for my hand. I found out something about your mom, I said. She's been cheating on me for over 24 years. Silence. Their faces froze. Kyle looked stunned. What? And I continued, the truth is, biologically, I'm not your father. Evelyn's lip trembled. What are you saying? I looked at both of them, trying to keep my voice steady. I may not have contributed the DNA, but I raised you. I held you, taught you, loved you. That doesn't change. I am your father. I will always be your father. They sat still, wide-eyed, processing it all. I took Evelyn's hand in one of mine and Kyle's in the other. Tomorrow, I'm going to destroy everything your mother built on lies. But I need you to know, this isn't about hurting you. It's about exposing what's real and what never was. They didn't speak for a long moment. Then, Kyle leaned forward and hugged me tightly. Evelyn joined from the side. We love you, Dad, she whispered. No matter what, Kyle added. We held on to each other in silence. The weight of 24 years, of hidden truths, of shattered identities pressed down on all of us. And as we embraced tightly, tears flowed down our faces. They had so many questions, reasonable ones, difficult ones, and I tried to answer each one as honestly as I could, refusing to sugarcoat anything. I told them the truth as plainly as it stood. No embellishments. No drama. Just what was. Then I looked at them, really looked into their eyes, and said gently, I have something to ask, and I know it's a lot. I want you both to come with me tomorrow, when I confront your mother. I could see the confusion rising on their faces. I understand this is a heavy thing to ask, maybe even unfair, but I need you to know, this moment is going to be messy. You'll see me angry, cold, maybe even cruel, and I may say things that'll embarrass you. But I don't want you to mistake that for how I feel about you. They were silent, trying to process the words. I love you both, deeply, and I always will. I may not be your biological father, but in every way that matters, I am your father. And nothing you see tomorrow, none of the truths that come out, will ever change that. I paused, collecting myself. You're both adults now. I can't legally adopt you, though I would, in a heartbeat. But know this, I choose you, every day. I always have. And I always will. It was quiet for a long moment. Then Kyle, his voice shaking, whispered through tears, Dad, I understand. But you love Mom. And she loves you, right? Is there any way you can forgive her? Maybe work through this with a psychologist? Try to fix it. The weight of his words hit me like a blow to the chest. Looking into his hopeful face, I had to force myself to remain calm, to not break down or shout or collapse under the injustice of it all. I inhaled slowly. Kyle, Evelyn, I know you want your parents to be together. That's a natural wish. I understand it, I do. But I need you to do something for me. I leaned in, my voice soft but steady. Close your eyes. Just for a minute. Let me take you on a journey. They obeyed, eyes closed, silent. Imagine, I said, you've met someone extraordinary. The kind of person who makes the world feel like magic. You think, this is it. The partner you'll grow old with. You fall deeply in love, marry, and after a beautiful honeymoon, you both work hard, build your careers, and have 2 amazing children. Your life becomes about your family, their dreams, their games, their needs. You spend weekends at football fields, cheerleading competitions, school events. Every spare moment goes into making them feel loved. Their faces softened. You take vacations together. You hold each other close on winter nights. You believe truly that life couldn't get better. Even when work pulls you away from home, your heart aches to return to your family. You thank God for them. Every day, they remained still, listening intently. And then, one day, I continued, my tone darkening. You watch a movie. Just a film. A scene appears. Your wife, the woman you love, the woman you believe shares that same life with you, is in a hotel room. Not alone. She's with 3 men and 2 other women. There's laughter, flirting, a game being played. Cards. Their brows furrowed, still with eyes closed. Each woman picks a card. Your wife turns hers over. It's the Ace of Spades. She lights up, beaming, joyful as if she's just been given the greatest gift imaginable. I paused, letting the moment hang heavy in the air. Given this scenario, I looked at Kyle, my voice low but unwavering. Kyle, do you still believe in your wife's love for you after all this? He didn't answer. His eyes welled up, fixed somewhere on the floor. Turning to Evelyn, I continued gently. Evelyn, imagine your husband was one of the men in that movie. How would you feel? Would you talk about forgiveness? Would you go to therapy to work things out? They both remained silent, the weight of what I was saying pressing hard on them. Kyle stared at me, eyes shimmering. Evelyn sobbed quietly beside him. They needed time to breathe, to process, to steady themselves under the enormity of it all. And then I told them the rest. Imagine, I said, this wasn't a one-time betrayal. Imagine it being filmed again and again. They've been releasing 4 films a year for 24 years. Consistently. And just today, we gained access to a live broadcast, yes, live of them shooting another one. Right here. Less than a kilometer from us. Kyle lifted his head slowly, disbelief spreading across his face. I've collected over 40 hours of footage, I said quietly. Video of your mother with these people during the 3 previous trips. I let that hang there before continuing. And let me ask you, how would you feel if you weren't the biological parent of your children? Or worse, if your husband was the biological father of someone else's child in that group? Neither of them said a word. I pressed on, not cruelly, but with a purpose. Now think about this. The one person you love most in the world decides to leave you and your children a day early. Why? Not for an emergency, not for work, but just to get an extra day in with that group. For entertainment, for sex. Then, they extend their stay for 2 more days just to keep going. My hands were trembling slightly, but my voice was calm. They return, exhausted, needing a whole day to recover. Before they can even face you, the person they claim to love. You think that's love? You think that's respect? They said nothing, and so I turned the focus. She didn't just lie to me, Kyle. Evelyn. She lied to both of you. She disrespected all of us. Kyle looked like he'd been punched in the gut. His voice cracked as he finally spoke. I never thought about it like that, Dad. You're right. I mean, I love Mom. But I wouldn't ever want my wife to treat me that way. I didn't think she'd choose them over being with us. He looked down, wiped his face. I love you, Dad. I don't know if I can be there tomorrow. I need to think. I'm sorry you're going through this. He paused, then added bitterly, but if my wife ever did that, she'd get one hell of a kick. Evelyn reached over and squeezed my hand. Her voice was steady. You're a wonderful father, and I love you, she said. But Kyle, he's always put his own comfort first, just like Mom did with her group. She turned to me. Dad, I'll be there tomorrow. And Kyle should be too. It's time he grew up. Her fire caught me off guard. She was never one to speak like that. I looked at her, at both of them, and felt a strange mix of pride and grief burning inside me. Evelyn cleared her throat. So, what's the plan for tomorrow? I explained it plainly. I've invited the spouses of all 6 people in that group. They think we're throwing a surprise celebration for our 25th wedding anniversary. I looked from one to the other. They've all been with Diana and the others for years. It felt fitting that they be part of the occasion. They listened carefully. You 2 are the only ones who know in advance. No one else does. It needs to be a surprise for everyone. When the moment comes, I'll show the evidence. Let their spouses decide how to react. Let the truth speak for itself. I paused, then added with a hollow chuckle, by the way, don't forget, you've got stepbrothers and stepsisters now. You might want to meet later. All 5 remaining partners arrived at the hotel, right on schedule. The air in the lounge was thick with quiet tension, but we all managed to share a civil lunch. There were handshakes, half smiles, introductions, the kind of polite social routine one would expect before a storm. Kyle stayed close to me, silent but observant, while Evelyn seemed completely composed, even cheerful. A stark contrast to what I felt boiling under my skin. At 2 p.m., our group walked into the lobby of the hotel where Diana's class was being held. The rest of the invited spouses were already there, waiting, watching. Along with them stood a lawyer from Dylan Ford's office, one of Felix's agents, and a seasoned videographer named Jacob Manning, camera bag on shoulder, already setting up quietly. At 2:30 p.m., the florist arrived right on cue, delivering the bouquet of 25 red roses I had ordered earlier. A personal touch, symbolic, sharp, final. I saw how Evelyn and some of the other women admired the roses, letting their fingers linger across the petals, perhaps to mask the nerves simmering underneath. But Evelyn's eyes, they burned. She was fired up, ready for war. Needing a moment to calm myself, I whispered to her, don't worry. Everything's in my hands. She nodded, jaw tight. At 2:45 p.m., we began our walk toward the meeting room where Diana's class was being held. Evelyn led the way, confident and precise. Kyle followed close behind. The spouses behind us were whispering amongst themselves, but I couldn't afford to be distracted. I carried the roses myself, steadying my breath, masking every emotion under a polished smile. This was performance. This was precision. Exactly at 3 p.m., I pushed open the door to the meeting room. Manning followed right behind me, camera rolling. There she was, Diana, standing at the head of the class, mid-sentence, her back to the door. The moment her eyes met mine, her entire expression shifted. Her face flushed bright red, crimson. I walked toward her with the bouquet and a smile. Calm, composed. Wow, I said playfully, loud enough for the class to hear. That blush really matches the roses. There was a brief moment of laughter from the students, just what I wanted. Disarm. Distract. Let it all feel harmless for now. Diana managed a nervous smile. Everyone, she said, turning toward the room again. This is Jacob, my husband. I gave the room a friendly nod and scanned the crowd, quickly spotting the other 5. Exactly where they should be scattered, but all present. Turning back to her. I said warmly. I know today's the last day of your class, and before you all head out, I thought we could do something special. This Sunday, Diana and I will be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. Right on cue, Evelyn and the others entered through the side hallway. The timing was perfect. The videographer panned around and captured the moment, the unmistakable, paralyzed expression on Diana's face as she saw Evelyn, Kyle, and the spouses of her so-called friends. It was a work of art. Her jaw tightened, her shoulders stiffened, but her feet didn't move. Not yet. Evelyn walked over and began introducing the spouses. Her voice was clear, firm. She seemed to enjoy each shocked look, each stiffened back. I noticed the way she looked at Diana, like someone watching a queen about to lose her crown. I wondered if her future husband would survive her wrath if he ever crossed a line. Probably not. Turning to the group, I spoke with cheerful ease. This Sunday, we celebrate 25 years of marriage, I repeated. And next month, Diana will also celebrate 25 years working with this company. Pretty remarkable that both milestones happen so close together. I gestured casually toward the five. It's also interesting that George, Henry, Chuck, Joyce, and Catherine all joined the company around the same time. So I thought, why not make it even more memorable? I invited their spouses to join us today. The crowd shifted uneasily, sensing something deeper beneath the surface. And I added, Jacob here will be capturing the event on video. So if anyone would like to say something to the camera before leaving, please do. I paused, inhaling deeply. The storm was coming now, thick on my tongue. I scanned their faces. The gang of six looked dazed. Diana was frozen in place. Henry wouldn't meet my eyes. Chuck looked ready to faint. With a slow gesture, I invited them forward. George, Henry, Chuck, Joyce, Catherine, come up here. Let's hear it for them. They moved slowly to the front of the room as a few people clapped uncertainly. Evelyn stepped beside me again, her shoulders squared. Her hand found mine, and I felt the energy radiating from her. She wanted this as much as I did. I guided her toward George, then looked back at Diana. In a calm voice I said, George Thomas is Evelyn's biological father. Diana's face drained of all color. Her knees almost buckled. She looked like a ghost. George's wife stared at me, stunned. Her mouth slightly open, eyes wide, as if she'd misheard. Excuse me, she said. Can you repeat that? I looked at her steadily and said, George is Evelyn's biological father. The words hung heavy in the air. George turned sharply toward me, trying to compose himself. Why would you say that? He demanded. Without a word, I extended my hand behind me, and the lawyer from Dylan's office placed 3 envelopes into my palm. I turned back to George. This, I said, handing him the first envelope, is a petition for a court-ordered paternity test. He blinked, visibly shaken. This one, I continued, passing him the second document, is a lawsuit. I'm suing you for 21 years of unpaid alimony and damages for emotional suffering. I paused before handing over the third. And this, I said coldly, is a lawsuit filed against your employer for violating the moral obligations outlined in your employment contract. George's wife, still pale and frozen, asked in a quiet voice, Do I get copies of that? I nodded. Yes, you'll have everything. Use it however you see fit. That was when the room truly erupted. The murmurs turned to gasps. The tension snapped like a rubber band. The rest of the spouses, who had come expecting a surprise party, now realized the real surprise. What had started as a smile-filled anniversary appearance had turned into a courtroom floor. And I stood calm in the storm. I had waited for this moment. The unveiling. The reckoning. And amidst the chaos, a quiet tap on my shoulder brought me back. Kyle. He didn't say a word. He just stood next to me, his chin lifted slightly, nodding. In that moment, I felt pride swell in my chest. He understood. Maybe not everything, but enough. He was with me. I turned to Chuck, my next stop. And I wanted Kyle with me for this one. Kyle, I said gently but clearly, I want you to meet your biological father, Charles Nixon. As soon as I said the name, the room fell into an eerie silence. Charles K. Nixon, I repeated, watching Chuck flinch at the sound of his full name. The lawyer handed me another set of documents, and just like I had with George, I methodically walked Chuck through them: petition, lawsuit for damages, suit against his employer. Chuck's wife, visibly shaken, asked for copies. I assured her they were hers. At that point, a strange calm settled in. Maybe it was the realization that Diana had only 2 children. Maybe the rest were just beginning to grasp the scale of what was happening. Either way, the chaos momentarily softened, and I allowed myself a quiet, satisfied breath. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Diana sat slumped in a chair, her face streaked with tears. Silent. Hollow. She hadn't spoken a word since George was named. I turned toward her, my voice cool and unflinching. I know my appearance today caught you off guard, I said, pausing long enough for silence to reclaim the room. But get ready, because the real fun is just beginning. That silence, the kind where you could hear a pin drop spread across the room like a fog. I took a long breath and said, for 5 months, I've known the truth. That you, Diana, along with Joyce, Catherine, George, Chuck, and Henry, have been attending these classes not to learn, not to train, but to avoid your responsibilities. This has gone on for over 2 decades. The gasps returned. Eyes darted. Back stiffened. I couldn't let this continue in secret. I added, my tone unwavering. Evelyn turned 23 recently. It's time everyone knew what really happened. I looked across the stunned crowd and raised my voice slightly. Let's break it down, shall we? Henry is the biological father of Joyce's daughter and Catherine's son, George. He's the biological father of Catherine's eldest daughter and Evelyn. Kyle's biological father is Chuck. Out of 7 children born to the 3 of you, only one child, Joyce's son, is the product of his mother's actual marriage. Gasps gave way to quiet sobs. I didn't care. The room was in complete chaos, now papers in hands, arguments erupting, hearts breaking. I could have stopped, but I needed to finish what I'd started. The legal documents had been served. Copies had been distributed to every spouse. The storm was in full swing. I approached Diana, who still hadn't looked up, and handed her the divorce papers directly. Do not contact me, I said coldly. Do not return to the house. Do not attempt to see me again. It was the only thing I said to her. Later, I sat in my hotel room, letting the silence wrap around me like a cloak. The events of the day churned in my mind. Diana, the group, the web of lies, the look on Kyle's face, Evelyn's voice. And then, as if summoned by my thoughts, Evelyn appeared beside me, quiet, calm. I had originally intended to pace the revelations, confronting each member of her group in turn, easing my way toward the final disclosure, the truth about the children. Evelyn had a strong desire to meet her biological father face to face. I could see it in her eyes, confusion, urgency, and a hunger for clarity. I didn't blame her. It was only natural. But for me, I had made my choice. Abandon the original plan, go with the flow, and focus on what mattered most, making sure every member of that wretched group of 6 understood that I knew everything, that I had exposed them. Public shame wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Each of them, Diana included, had desecrated their marriages, violated the trust of their families, and carried on like it was a harmless secret, handing their spouses the evidence. Watching the fury, the disorientation, and the inevitable reckoning, it gave me a bitter but undeniable sense of satisfaction. My confidence hadn't just returned, it was renewed. I was mid-thought, staring blankly at the hotel wall, when I heard a knock. I rose and opened the door. To my surprise, it was Kyle and Evelyn. My children, the same 2 who had, just days ago, helped their mother up to her room. Hey, I said, surprised but happy to see them. What brings you 2 here? Evelyn stepped forward first and wrapped her arms tightly around me. I could feel the weight in that hug, pain, affection, understanding. She looked up at me and said softly, Dad, I know you don't want to talk about Mom. I understand that. But she's not doing well. I stayed quiet. She's a mess, she continued. Completely broken. I've decided to take her home with me tomorrow. I'll give her a week to pack her things, and then she'll go back to Atlanta. I just couldn't leave her like that. I studied her face, there was strength there. Determination. She was hurting too, but she was trying to do what she felt was right. Despite everything Diana had done to our family, Evelyn still loved her. And in that moment, I realized maybe that's what made Evelyn stronger than the rest of us. She could face all of this and still show compassion. I was proud of her. I nodded, voice low. I'm grateful, Evelyn. You're doing what she needs, even if she doesn't deserve it. Kyle cleared his throat. Dad, he said, I love you. And I hate what Mom did to us. I really do. He paused, rubbing the back of his neck. I was thinking, maybe I could come with you when you go home tomorrow. I smiled. I'd like that, I said. I'd be glad to have you with me. Evelyn stood, hugged me once more. I'll stay the night with Mom, she said. She shouldn't be alone right now. As she walked out, she turned back briefly. Daddy, I love you. The door clicked shut behind her. Kyle and I stayed up for a few more hours, cracking open beers, trying to make sense of the mess. We didn't talk much, but we didn't need to. The silence was its own kind of healing. Eventually, he went off to his room. 5 years have passed since I dismantled the gang of 6, those smug, deceitful people who thought they'd never be caught. And I'll tell you this, life has been good to me. The consequences for them? Severe. Within a week, all 6 were dismissed from their positions. Their careers shattered. Their reputations gone. One by one, they divorced, lost the structure of their lives, and were left with nothing but each other's betrayal. No careers, no stability. Just loneliness, regret, and the torment of their exposed secrets. What's strangely satisfying is how their past haunts them. Whenever one manages to find a halfway decent job, their history catches up, often costing them the opportunity. I can't take full credit for that, though I wish I could. There are other eyes watching them now, other forces keeping tabs. They try to rebuild, some reconnecting with their children, some trying to move on. But none of them have found real peace. Their exes? They only call when they want money. That says it all. Some of the children have slowly warmed up to them again. Not many, but a few. 1 or 2 cracks in the ice. When I returned to Atlanta after everything, I stayed the night in what used to be our home. One night was all it took. The walls held too many memories, too many ghosts. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe in that place anymore. So I left, checked into a hotel, and began the search for something new. A place without Diana's shadow. Kyle had joined me on the trip, but after a few weeks, he took a job in Dallas, Texas. His first real job. He's done well, been promoted 4 times in 5 years. He's single, dates casually, and he seems happy. He's even considering joining my company this summer. As for their mother 5 years later, and the relationship with their mother remains strained. They occasionally talk on the phone. Not often, not deeply, just enough to acknowledge each other's existence. Kyle hadn't seen his mother since we left Orlando. He never asked about her, and I never pushed the subject. On the other hand, Evelyn speaks with him almost every day. The bond between them has only strengthened since all of this unfolded. The consequences of exposing the Gang of Six have left a profound and permanent mark on us, especially the kids. Trust, for them, became a scarce currency. I don't know if Kyle will ever trust someone enough to get married. He's still guarded, still wounded. But Evelyn had the strength to move forward. She took Diana with her to Naples for a week. Out of compassion, perhaps. Out of obligation, maybe. I didn't ask. During that week, Evelyn made it abundantly clear that she wasn't interested in Diana's explanations. Save it for your therapist, she told her mother more than once. I've heard enough lies. Evelyn firmly believed that no words could possibly justify Diana's actions or the way she shattered our family. Her resolve in that conviction has never wavered. And when Evelyn's private wedding came, there was no invitation for Diana. None. Diana didn't attend. She didn't even know the venue. Evelyn married Trey in a quiet ceremony surrounded by love, but not deception. She and Trey live in Atlanta now. Evelyn chose not to work in my company at first. But 2 years ago, she changed her mind. She's brilliant, has a natural talent for business that I never fully appreciated until I saw her in action. She's assertive, sharp, and calm under pressure. She made it clear to Trey from the start. If I ever catch you cheating, don't expect a conversation, expect the door. And he knows what Diana did. He understands Evelyn's boundaries. She's stronger because of what she endured. 8 months after the storm broke, after I exposed the Gang of Six and their web of lies, their spouses and children gathered in Atlanta. It wasn't just closure. It was connection healing. Being surrounded by others who had gone through the same hell made it easier to move forward. The children formed friendships, bonds they still hold today. In fact, in 3 weeks we're heading to Nashville for another gathering. These reunions remind us we aren't alone. Strangely, it turned out that when the Gang of Six began cheating, they paired off for a week instead of engaging in intimacy with their spouses. A dark irony. And another twist, Evelyn and Kyle were named after George's mother and father. Their biological lineage forever tied them to the men who helped tear our lives apart. Even after 5 years, the children's relationship with Diana remains strained. Evelyn, she at least agrees to meet her for lunch once in a while, though her eyes never soften when she speaks of her. Kyle, he refuses to meet her. Categorically. I once loved Diana deeply. Completely. I built a life with her, trusted her with every inch of my soul. But when her lies unraveled, that love didn't turn to hatred, it turned to resolve. I understood that I couldn't wallow. My children needed me. And truthfully, I needed them too. Diana and I agreed she'd keep the house. She said it held too many cherished memories to give up. I disagreed. For me, it was just a graveyard of broken trust. I also handled things with George and Chuck. Rather than pursue selfish gain, I took the money they provided and placed it into trust funds for Evelyn and Kyle. That was never about revenge, it was about consequences. I wanted them to feel what it was like to face what they destroyed. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I began dating again. Cautiously, not out of desperation, but with hope. I want to find someone to share this life with, someone who loves and is loved in return. Until that happens, I wait. Patiently. I wait for Evelyn to give me grandchildren, someone new to pour my heart into. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal never leads to anything good. It breeds pain, destruction, regret. Revenge may feel satisfying, but in the end, it doesn't rebuild anything. As for Diana, karma found her. She was humiliated publicly. Her attempts to form new relationships failed repeatedly. She struggled to find any stable employment. And now? Now she's working as a cook in a fast food restaurant. A few weeks ago, something terrible happened. While on shift, hot oil from the deep fryer spilled completely, soaking her from the waist down. 95% of the skin below her waist was scalded. I can't even fathom the pain. Now she's in a clinic, under close medical supervision. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.